The MOVA Z60 is their first robot vacuum with a roller style mop. And there's a lot of hype for this because MOVA only started selling vacuums in the US this year. And already it's a contender for our best robot vacuum of the year. And honestly, the bar is really high for that right now. Now, just to be clear, MOVA didn't send me any money. I'm sure you're gonna see some paid videos on the Z60, but this isn't one of them. MOVA sent me the Z60 and it has two features that I have not seen before in a robot vacuum. But first, let's see if this roller mop thing actually works in my house. This is our dried coffee stain test. We sent the MOVA out in normal mode to see if it could identify the coffee stain. In the app, you can see it identified the stain, and it's 98% chance it's a liquid stain. Not quite right, but it did identify it. Gone back to the base station to charge, but in the meantime, get a dry paper towel. This is the first time I'm seeing it too. So there definitely is some coffee stain on here still, but I think it's gonna come back for another pass. It's just finished its second pass. I don't know what this paper towel is gonna look like. You're gonna find out with me. That actually looks pretty good. There's a little bit of water here, but I think the coffee is mostly gone. I let the paper towel dry for a few minutes so you can judge the result for yourself. This is a difficult test, and that is an impressive result. I've spilled a little bit of green salsa in the middle of the floor. Let's see how it deals with this. Okay, it spotted the salsa. So you can see in the app it shows as an uncleanable stain. It doesn't know what it is, which is fair. What these robots are deciding is whether to clean a stain like that or not, because it could be pet poop, it could be waste, and you don't want to spread that all around the floor. So I think erring on the side of caution is probably a good move. So here's what's unique about it. Most robots use either vibrating pads or spinning pads, but the Z60 has this 10-inch wide roller. Robots with spinning pads can drag some of the dirt around your floor and not really fully clean it. And so when they get really dirty, the robot has to go back to the base station to clean them. But this roller system works differently. So it's got what MOVA calls the hydroforce system. And there's 12 nozzles that continuously spray fresh water onto the roller while it's cleaning. And at the same time, it's scraping the dirty water back into a separate tank on board the robot. So theoretically, the roller is getting cleaned in real time as it's mopping your floor. So the MOVA Z60 has dual spinning main brush system, and it's actually only connected at one end. So that means as it's spinning, it's going to detangle the hair and hopefully push it down into here. The next thing is it has an extending side brush. Now these wheels can also move. These are drive wheels, but they can also help lift the robot over thresholds, and we're going to see exactly how big they are later. Now I've spilled some wet soy sauce on the floor. It is quite messy. We're going to put the robot in AI mode. I think it's called Clean Genius, and we're going to see if it can identify it. In the app, it showed that it identified a liquid stain, and there's the photo. It just completed its first pass, and there's definitely some soy sauce left on the floor. I'm not quite sure how much, but it's cleaning the mop pads, and let's see if it goes out for another pass. That's the second pass. It looks a lot better. This is the paper towel dried out. It looks pretty good to me, but there is just a slight bit of soy sauce left. Here's the first thing that I haven't seen on a robot vacuum before. The Z60 has this auto shield system. So when the Z60 detects a carpet, it lifts the roller mop about 14 millimeters away from the surface, and then this baffle extends underneath the mop to keep it from getting moisture on your carpet. I'm going to lift up the robot, and I think you will see the cover retracting in high speed. Let's see how fast we can do it. There it is. Difficult to catch, but that cover comes down when it's on carpet. And that is really cool. Now, the second unique thing about the Z60 is this fluffer tech. They call it fluff roll. And what it does is it spins in the opposite direction of the brush roll and it fluffs it up. So it's supposed to help clean your floor more effectively by helping keep the brush roll fluffy. Now, all those things are pretty cool, but there's actually something that MOVA did which kind of surprised me that I wasn't expecting, that tells you that MOVA is really into providing value. And that is this box of accessories. So you get 3 extra brush rollers, you get an extra main brush, you get 3 filters, you get a bottle of cleaning solution, you get a bottle of pet odor solution, and a couple extra bags, and you get a couple extra side brushes. So with your initial investment, you can actually use this thing for quite a while before you need to replace anything. The roller mop on the MOVA extends out to the side, and it should be able to get up to baseboards. So we tested it in our kitchen, and you can see it got pretty close to the baseboard, but if you look at the height difference between the top of the robot and the bottom of my cabinet, it's just a couple of millimeters, so it wasn't quite able to get in as close as some lower profile robots. However, in my living room, it's a different story because there is no height restriction. It was able to get right up to the baseboards and do a really good job of getting very, very close to them. Also in my dining room, I've got these wire chair legs, and you can see the roller got right up to the edge of them and did a pretty good job of getting around this complex environment while still trying to mop close to the chair legs. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Now let's see how close it gets in with the mop into the corner. The extending mop didn't really get into the corner all that effectively, but then again, I haven't seen a vacuum that really does that well. Now mopping is important, but one of the most important tests that we do when we're testing a vacuum is to test pickup on hardwood with sand, because sand is heavy, it's kind of difficult to pick up, but also I think that pickup on hardwood or a hard surface is the most important core function that a vacuum can really do, so we give it a double weighting with our scoring system. MOVA says the Z60 has 28,000 pascals of suction, and that's on the high end for a robot vacuum. The MOVA picked up 100% of the sand we sprinkled on hardwood. That's a baseline, and every high-end robot vacuum should be able to do this. The Z60 is really effective when it finds large pieces of dirt on your floor. I got some crunched up tortilla chips, a little bit of hair, and you can see it actually identified the large particles in the app. Look at the photo. And then when it identified them, you can see it did this back and forth zigzag pattern, and it did a really good job of picking up all those large particles. The Z60 has an extending side brush, and it should be pretty good at getting particles away from your baseboards. So we tried it in 2 locations. First, we tried it in the kitchen, and you can see it did a pretty good job, but the height of the robot is just almost the same height as the bottom of the cabinet, so it couldn't quite get in there, but it got pretty close. Then we tried it in the living room where it got right up to the baseboard without any problems. And you can see it actually identified the little grains of rice, and it slowed down the brush so it didn't kick them out to the middle of the floor. There's not many robots that can do that effectively, so I think that's pretty good. Now it did kick a few grains out, but actually what it's doing now is it's going out to the middle of the room to pick those up. And finally, after another pass, it went back to the edge, it cleaned up all the rice. So I think this is actually quite effective with larger particles and stuff along the side of your baseboards. We want to see how effective the extending side brush is in corners. So we sprinkled 8 grains of rice. Let's see how it does. So it did a very good job. It left 2 grains of rice. Not bad, pretty solid. You can see it gets right into the corner. We also tested it to see how good anti-tangle is. So I got fluffy cats. We tested the Z60 on pet hair, and we found it was very effective at reducing tangles. Looks like it did a really good job with the pet hair. I see a couple little strands here and there. That's pretty good. We also tested it on 9-inch hair, and it's very effective there too. Let's take a look how it did. All right, there's a couple of strands of pink hair, but I think it did overall a pretty good job. There's like 1 strand around the side brush. If you let it run for a little while, typically it'll actually make its way into the central part of the robot. Now pickup is important, but if your robot is getting stuck on things all the time, how useful is it really? So that's why we spent a lot of time on our obstacle avoidance test. The MOVA V60 has AI Smart Sight. That means it has dual cameras up front, and it has a digital time of flight sensor in this little turret that can extend up when it is mopping in your room. It also has side sensors, and they say it can recognize around 200 objects. So in our obstacle avoidance test, we've got a shoe, we've got a sock, we got some fake pet poop, and we got this power cord along the wall. Let's see how it does. Overall, the Z60 achieved a perfect score in our obstacle test. That's quite rare. Then we gave it a charging cable to eat. and it wasn't hungry at all. There's very few robots that can actually avoid munching it, but the Z60 kept a good distance. All right, the Z60 is getting at least partway under my stove. It is a pretty close call. I got to admit, there's only less than a centimeter between the bottom of the stove and the top of the robot, but it got in there a little bit. You know what just blows my mind is that robots are now able to cross obstacles like these thresholds like never before. Now, I haven't actually tried this yet, but the Z60 is supposed to be able to cross a threshold of up to 4.8 centimeters in a single layer. And this is a little bit less than that. So let's see how it does. Whoa. Wow. That's the fastest I've ever seen any robot cross an obstacle like that. And it was so confident. Crazy. Hey, Future Eric here. I got some important information that didn't make it into the main part of the video. The V60 is going to be $400 off. Normally it's $14.99. It's going to be $10.99, but only on Amazon Prime Days on October 7th and 8th. So $400 off. And then also the V50, I reviewed that last week. It's also $400 off. Normally $13.99. It's going to be $9.99. I'm going to put the links down below in the description, and I'll have a video up for Prime Day on October 7th and 8th with all the deals for all the different brands, so check that out. But now back to the main part of the video. If you have a lot of carpet in your home, this might be the most important part of the video. For carpet pickup, we also sprinkle 20 grams of sand onto the carpet with a little bit of fun, and we test it twice. The first time we sprinkle it on, and we test it with maximum suction and high intensity cleaning with multiple passes. Next, we're gonna grind in the sand, but of course, we gotta sprinkle it first, Salt Bay style. So salty and tasty. And we grind it in to simulate what your TikTok teenagers might do with their special TikTok dance, which you can see I replicate perfectly. In our sprinkled sand test, the Z60 picked up 76% of the sand. That score is a little bit below average, but when the sand was ground in, the Z60 picked up 58%. That's a little below average for a flagship robot. Now, why should you care about what's going on at the base station? Well, I think the most important thing about a base station is to make your job as easy as possible to do the least amount of work. So basically you've got a clean water tank and a dirty water tank, and that's pretty much all that you need to think about for a couple of months. But let me show you the rest. Here you got your dust collection bag, but what's unique is that the solution tank has actually two separate sides. So you've got one, which is just for your normal floor cleaning, but you got a separate tank, which is going to be your pet odor solution. So you don't have to use this, but if you have kittens, puppies, or elderly pets that might have accidents, you could use this to reduce the smell. And this has hot water mop washing and hot water air drying. So right now it is drying the mop pad. So some robots have a more complex base plate, but this one and all the newer ones seem to have sort of figured it out. So this is pretty simple. You just pull this out. This is all the maintenance you need to do. It's got some water here, and you're gonna have some hair that's gonna collect here, so you need to clean that. But that's pretty much it. The MOVA app is actually quite good and easy to use. You can set up different rooms within a floor. You can tell it to go clean a specific room. You can clean a specific zone in your house. And it's pretty easy to set up no-go zones. You can set up the different types of cleaning you want. So vacuum and mop, different suction power, and different water levels, and also the route it's gonna take. You've got multiple floor mapping, and it has a camera so you can do video calls with your pets. Saturn, give me a status update on the food. We found the Z60 to be average in the noise department. In other words, it's not loud. At about 6 feet, we measured it at 63 decibels, mopping and sweeping. That's around conversation level. Washing the mop was also 63 decibels, and emptying the dustbin was 73 decibels. If you want to see daily videos on vacuums, we're now on TikTok and Instagram. Search up Vacuum Nerds. Here are my final thoughts on the MOVA Z60 Ultra Roller. To cut to the chase, for a roller style mop, the Z60 is very, very good. Its ability to recognize the different types of mess or dirt it's dealing with is really strong. In fact, it is one of the best we've ever tested. Its navigation and obstacle avoidance are also at the top of our rankings. And in the real world of my home, it never got stuck and it avoided everything in my house over a week of testing. That is super impressive. So if you hate cleaning and you hate maintaining things, the Z60 is a really strong choice. So how does it rank on our leaderboard? Currently it's number 3, and that changes every time we test a new robot. So if you're looking for a great deal on a vacuum, I'm gonna have a video up on October 7th. They're having a big Prime Day sale. And check out this video for more vacuum reviews.